Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. We started out with a script, went completely off it, and it turned into something of a 60-minute dad chat. However, we've got a bunch of great interviews coming out this month on the Patreon that are on a slightly more serious note. And if you really like Dad Chat, you can get them for $1 a month Patreon subscription. And quite frankly, there's been a lot of them lately. So if you enjoy that, then there's plenty more. And if not, I apologize. Please enjoy this episode.
Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. Glory, glory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Die. It's Francis, it's Nate. Winter weather blew through last week, but the Midwest is back to spring again. It was about 60 degrees yesterday. The wonderful world of living in the middle of the country where everything changes and you never know. And like it's really nice now, but we could also get a foot of snow in April, which has certainly happened. So fuck it. It's that fun in between time where it's like you have to have both your heavy coat and like your light hoodies out.
Oh, yeah. It's about 60 Fahrenheit here today, and the sun is setting close to 6 p.m. and coming up before 7 a.m. So it genuinely feels like the worst is over, and we're getting close to that period of time when we're actually like, this is why we like living this far north.
It is like it seems to swing like hard when you guys are going into the dark times. It's just dark, and then like because I've noticed it, like, oh, it's 5:30 and it's bright out. But I guess when you're living a little bit more extreme, closer to the poles, when the axis starts to tilt, it just like it'll stay like what's the most daylight you get like on the solstice, on the summer solstice?
Sun comes up about 4:30, I think. And maybe 5. I think it's closer to 4:30 and sets about 10:30 p.m.
Ooh.
But that's not as bad as it was. Once again, I mean, I lived in Anchorage, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 61 degrees north latitude. And in the summer, it's like the sun doesn't really set. I mean, it sets and like you get like dusk and then it comes back up again. It doesn't get really dark. It's obviously not that bad here. It's almost as bad. It's just as bad for afternoon sunset in winter here as it is in Anchorage, but it's not as bad for morning. There, the sun doesn't come up till about 10 a.m. around the winter solstice, and then sets at 4. But I can recall, you go out to the bars in Anchorage, and you could easily stay out till they close. Like a lot of them close at 3, and you come out and the sun's already starting to come up again.
Ugh.
I was at Fort Greely for a training exercise, which is about, I think, like 100 miles south of Fairbanks. And we were there around the solstice for a big FTX. And it got kind of dusk, but not really dark enough to need nods. And then the sun came back up again. Like it would get kind of dusk around 2 and then come back up by 3:30 or 4. So it was permanent daytime, basically.
How did you...
That's just wild.
Yeah, how did you not go crazy?
I mean, for which? For summer or winter?
Yes.
They're both kind of crazy.
Yes.
In summer, I would sleep with... bear in mind, Anchorage is not very warm. Like, it does have maybe like warm spells, but it's typically pretty chilly at night, no matter what time, like even in the peak of summer. I would sleep, obviously, with my curtains drawn, and I would wear my watch cap, my fleece watch cap, over my eyes to sleep, because otherwise it's just too bright. In winter... I mean, honestly, man, there's not really much you can do. It fucking sucks. It's really cold. It's really snowy. I remember it being beautiful one weekend in February. No, during the week, it was beautiful in February or in April once in Anchorage. And I was like, sweet, this weekend's going to be fucking nice. All the ice will have melted. I can go for a nice bike ride or something on the trails. It'll be great. And then it snowed, and I'm not joking, 28 inches in one day, like on the last weekend of April. Like, it's just, yeah. So, I mean, this sucks, but it's nowhere near as bad as Anchorage. Like, I think the coldest I ever saw it get was negative 37 or negative 40 Fahrenheit, which is so cold that literally it's crossed over. It's the same temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. How to not go crazy? I mean, honestly, man, I really like cross-country skiing. I never really mastered the art of skate skiing, which, like, it seems like if you're born in Alaska, you're just born knowing how to fucking do that. I tried skate skiing, I just fall on my ass. But, like, old-fashioned cross-country skiing where you're just, like, mushing, I actually really like that. It's kind of like walking, but you're going a little faster. Yeah. And I would just go on these like 3-4 hour mush rides basically across, because there's a beautiful trail network in Anchorage that it's paved, and they do it for it's all across the city. You can get pretty decently around the city without having to cross any major roads once you're in the trail network. And then in the wintertime, they use like snow machines with some kind of trailer attachment to groom the trails for cross-country skiing. So you can basically get around on your skis in winter and get around on your bike or go running in summer. So I'd do that all the fucking time. I'd ride. Sometimes I'd ride to work, which was a little dicey because it was a long, long ride. But I would ride, before work sometimes just because I got up early. I was fucking young. I'd literally ride my bike to go do something before PT. That's who a Army lieutenant I was. In winter, I'd go on these weekend rides. But I mean, honestly, cross country ski treks. But I'd go hiking in the summer with my friends. There was lots of hiking around. I would just do as much as I possibly could to get out. But I mean, I think that wintertime, like doldrums are real. And there, I guess it's also different because the Army schedule doesn't change. You know what I mean? Like if your pre-PT formation is at 6:10 or 6:15 or 6:20 or whatever, like it doesn't matter if it's fucking -20, you're out. There are some rules in Alaska for like how cold you can exercise in. I can't remember what they were, but they were something along the lines of like, if it's below 0 Fahrenheit, then you can PT outside, but you stretch and cool down inside. And then I want to say if it was like below -35, you couldn't work out outside at all. I think we went balaclava down if it was below 10 or below 0 or -10. But the rule basically was like you didn't want to go volley down until it was really cold, because once you went volley down, you couldn't go volley up again, because if you did, people's faces would freeze. So you had to be like, all right, are we at the point where everyone's face is fucking dying? Okay, now put your masks down. All right, now they can't come up until we go inside. There was an old warehouse they'd converted to a gym, and a lot of our PT workouts in the winter were just, form up, stretch, run to that gym with our balaclavas down, then get inside, take everything off, work out in the gym, and then balaclavas back down again to run back to the company. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, I remember doing like a 3 or 4 mile run when it was in the -15-ish range. And dude, I mean, it just fucking sucks. Like your eyelashes freeze, your eyebrows freeze. You get like this weird ice suck hole around your mask. Like it looks like you're growing a huge ice pimple over your mouth because like all the inhalation, exhalation through the mask causes it to freeze like once it gets the cold air. And so like that ice starts to build and build and build. And it's like you're like growing an ice dick out of your mouth. Like
an ice dick for the ice hole.
Yeah, man, there's folks who fucking love Alaska so much. Like they become homesteaders. And I was just like, get me out of this fucking place. Just get me out of here. It was so bad. Ugh, I could have gone to Germany, dude. I could have gone to fucking Germany. I went to Alaska. I was like, I'm gonna be an adventurer.
I'm gonna go on the frontier.
I mean, truthfully, I wanted to be in an airborne unit. Everyone had told me be in an airborne unit. Not if you can avoid the 82nd. That's the best case scenario. And as a brand new lieutenant, it's not impossible, but it's very challenging to get orders to Vicenza, because that's like destination number 1 for all the West Point cadets. And West Pointers get first dibs on assignments when they're like assigning your year group. Like nobody from OCS or ROTC gets their assignment until every West Pointer's assignment's been filled. Or at least that's how it was explained to me. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's casting aspersions on our academy brothers and sisters and non-binary comrades. But I am not convinced that that's not the case, because almost nobody, everyone I knew who went to Vicenza was a West Pointer, except for people who had gone to like elite schools, because I guess maybe they pulled them. They're like, these guys are smart. I have no idea. But yeah.
It is expected that the Army is lying to you or giving somebody ratings before you. And it's perfectly, this is why the thing that it kills me whenever people say that the military is socialist. Like, no, it's not. We have elite status people, and it's not you.
100%.
It's not me. It's not you.
If your dad's a flag officer, like you just live in a different army.
If you got a CSM dad or a general dad or somebody or an uncle somewhere who's going to go to bat for you, who's going to get the letter for you to be written to get into West Point. I mean, I'm not saying don't use whatever advantages you have, but just understand that I hate you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it really depends on the person. It really depends on how famous or how like highly ranked your connection is. But yeah, that absolutely is true. And for me, at least, I felt like it would have been cool to go to Vicenza, but everybody I know who went to Vicenza said they basically just deployed the whole time. Like this was, I got to my first unit in the beginning of 2008, and I feel as though real heads from the 173rd Airborne Brigade can chime in if they actually listen to this show. I'm amazed if any of y'all are out there, Sky Soldiers, hell yeah. But they were in Iraq or Afghanistan constantly. Like, they might have gotten a few weekends free here and there where they could like go to Rome or go to Sofia or go to Berlin or something. But like, by and large, it was super locked down with just constant deployments and then deployments to CMTC in Germany or whatever. So, yeah, man. I mean, like, I wanted to be airborne. I went to Alaska. I learned all about the deep north. Never again. Inshallah, I will actually take that back. I would go back to Alaska on vacation to show my wife because I think she would really enjoy it. I would never in a million years want to live there ever again.
Yeah, my wife and I have talked about going, visiting Alaska and, seeing the Northern Lights, and it sounds wonderful to do, and if I don't have to stay there for like longer than a week.
Well, it's funny because, Alaska has the permanent fund dividend, and I don't know what it's like now because I know they've been going through like insane, Tea Party, Republican austerity on their budget. But the permanent fund, which is from oil revenues, funded basically the entirety of the state. And Alaska has this weird history of being, in its early days, a state run by Republicans who were like big time welfare state Republicans. It was very strange. They're, if I remember correctly, Frank Murkowski, Lisa Murkowski, the senator's father, had a plan that he thought Alaska could use oil money to finance a freshwater pipeline that would run all the way either under the ocean or across the Yukon, which makes no sense because of temperatures, to bring fresh water to California. He was like, well, we already did one big ass pipeline for oil. Why not just do another one and solve California's water problems? And people are like, dude, are you insane? It's like 4,000 miles.
we could get water from elsewhere, man.
Yeah, it's like there are other temperate places with water closer to California than Alaska. But the thing about Alaska was, you could sign up for the PFD. The restriction was really, really intense. Like, you had to spend an entire calendar year living there, and you had to at least like be able to prove that you at least intended to make it your permanent home. Now, if you're military, it was a little easier to do that. You were exempt from the requirements so long as you were on active duty. But basically, if you didn't come back to Alaska when it was all said and done, they could recoup the funds they had given you. And so I never signed up for PFD because I knew pretty early. By the time that I lived in Alaska long enough to be eligible for PFD, I was like, I fucking hate this place. I am not like, yeah, I could get money, but like,
it's not even that much, is it? It's like $1,000 a year.
Yeah, it's like $1,000 a year per person in your family. It really depends. Like, it's been more, it's been a lot less. I don't know what it is now. But obviously, like, it is the closest thing to universal basic income that exists in America. But there's a ton of restrictions on it. And obviously also like the oil prices are really low now compared to what they were in the mid 2000s. So it's just way less. And the thing about it is with Alaska too, it's like, well, it's cool you get free money, but also like everything's expensive there. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's not much like the Army being hyped up as a socialist paradise because it has some social protections that the regular civilian world doesn't allow. Alaska, its UBI is nice, but it's not like this legendary thing. And because it's really unpredictable, because it's all based on how much money the permanent fund has made and how much they've made selling oil, like there's no real guarantee. Like you can't really base, it's not like VA disability, for example, where whatever your status, what you're getting. And they could fuck you, they could reinvestigate you, they could downgrade you. But while you've got that status, like whatever your percentage ranking is at, what you're going to be getting at the end of the month. And it's not like that. PFD is not like that. It's once a year, and it absolutely, like they publish it a little while before it actually hits your bank account, like what it's going to be.
It sounds like when you get a tax return, like you don't know what it's going to be. It's just like here's some money that you weren't expecting.
Yeah,
which is nice, but also you have to live in Alaska, so.
Yeah, and I also the funny thing is that you have to go back to Alaska to collect PFD, like to be eligible. Even if you don't live in Alaska, you at least have to. They have to, if they want to investigate you, you have to prove that you plan on moving to Alaska permanently someday, and you have to be you can't claim the PFD for that year unless you spent, I think it's like 96 or 72 hours in Alaska. But the thing about it is the amount of money is not that much, and it would genuinely, if you wanted to just like go back to Alaska to get your PFD, it would cost you more to fly to Alaska on a regular civilian flight, I think, than you would actually get in the money. And also when you think about cost of accommodations, like there's no real point in doing it that way. So that's why I never signed up for it.
Well, Alaska has that like tail that goes down the coastal Canada, so you don't have to get too far. You don't have to go like all the way up to like the heart. You just kind of
most of that is inaccessible by road. Most of that is inaccessible by road. You can't get there driving from Canada. You kind of can. You can get to Haines, but like Juneau and those areas, like they're resupplied by plane and boat. Like there aren't roads that run up there. Like specifically, you can't drive. You can't drive to Juneau from Anchorage. And to drive to Haines, you basically have to drive way into the Yukon to catch the road that junctions off from the road that goes to almost Fairbanks, and take it down towards Haines. Yeah, so it's you look at it, you're like, let's just drive there from Vancouver. It's like, no. British Columbia is practically the size of fucking the entire West Coast America. Like genuinely, it's so fucking long, and the maps lie. Literally, no matter what the maps say, you look at it and you're like, British Columbia, it won't be that long. It's just a big Washington, right? It's like 4 Washingtons stacked on top of each other.
You do have to take into account that any map that you're looking at, the sizes of countries are probably incorrect, unless you're looking at a globe.
We went on a little bit about Alaska here, but I feel like the big takeaway is, of course, stuff gets sold as like this amazing policy. And like, yeah, it would be great if we had something like the PFD for everyone in America, everyone who works in America, who lives in America, every resident, and I'm big on doing it in such a way that anyone who's living in America gets it, and not being fucking parochial about like trying to like means test it and shit. But I would say if you ever encounter people selling the PFD as like this huge, amazing socialist project, it's like a couple of problems. For one, it's entirely dependent on the sale of stuff that is causing global warming. For another, it doesn't make up for the insane cost of living up there. And for another, it's highly variable. So it can be, like I said, I want to say it's been as low as like $300 or $400 a year, and it's been as high as like, it might have been like $2,000. I know it's been over 1,000 before, but that's for every person in your family. So, obviously, yeah.
It seems like it's one of those, the PFD is not a reason to draw people to Alaska, but it is kind of a reason to, like, look, you're here. We'll give you $1,000 in January every month or every year.
Yeah, I think it's August, but yeah, it's like, look, for a lot of people in Alaska, like that money goes a long fucking way, because especially Native Alaskan communities, that's a huge cash infusion for people who live in like these towns out in the bush and stuff like that, or like on the coast, especially really far north, when you're in the places where, you can't get back to Anchorage or any part of like urban Alaska except by plane, that money's a lifeline in a huge way. So don't get me wrong, it's helpful, but I think because it's basically like, it could be way more generous. It's sort of like the least you could do when you think about how much money oil companies have made off the state of Alaska since the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline was installed in the late 70s, I believe. Just like the sheer volume of money that the oil industry pumps out of the Arctic Ocean shores and the North Slope and stuff like that, it's insane. So that's my take.
Alaska, go there if you want, I guess.
Yeah. What was the quote from the Simpsons movie? Alaska, where you can never be too fat or too drunk.
And to be fair, the people I have heard that really love Alaska, there's a certain person, and it is not me. You gotta.
Well, basically, everybody who's from Alaska is either like super super bougie, and their name is like Huckleberry, and they basically like they have perfect teeth and perfect figures and perfect hair, and they wind up going to like incredibly expensive private schools and probably getting jobs in the lower 48 and never coming back, or their name is like Joe Shit, and they live on a bus. Like the income inequality that exists in Alaska is unbelievable. The poverty, just the general level of low, what's the right word here? The quality of life is pretty low there. Like the housing sucks. The transportation infrastructure is bad. It's incredibly expensive to live. There aren't a ton of jobs for locals. the really high paying jobs are in the oil industry. And like, yes, there are like blue collar working jobs you can get in that, but a lot of them are for white collar engineers. And, they oftentimes are importing those people. The economy is very, very military driven. The weather's terrible. And yeah, it sucks. I mean, some people love it, but it's a hard place to live. And I went up there, did my 3.5 years. I was deployed for most of it, almost grateful to be deployed. And I would never live there ever again. And also, I feel like if you're going to live in that climate, you'd better live in a place as fucking wired tight as goddamn like Norway or Iceland, because if you live in like a free market paradise like Alaska, it just fucking sucks.
Yeah, if you want to go live in a libertarian wasteland, Alaska is there, and you are certainly welcome to go there and die in
you can homestead.
a van.
You can homestead. The government will give you land. You can homestead if you want. Just FYI, the land's going to be muskeg, which is like perma-swamp that freezes in the winter and then melts in the summer. And the only way you can build solid construction on muskeg is to dig it out. And I'm pretty sure you have to kind of line it like a swimming pool with cinder blocks and cement and then fill it back in. So building a shack, well, the reason why those shacks are always portrayed in popular consciousnness as like leaning and falling down is because they literally do. Because the land shifts every thaw, every time there's breakup in the spring. Those old buildings, like they look like rickety leaning ass outhouses. So you can be a homesteader if you want. It's going to be weird.
I don't. I've read enough of the Prairie, the Little House on the Prairie books to know that I don't want to go live. I don't want to go live in a wasteland and sod bust. That sounds terrible. But if other people want to do it, if you want to go and...
I mean, now weed is legal there now, so like go and fucking grow like there's just the dankest Alaskan thunderfuck or Matanuska Valley thunderfuck, or like Northern Lights or some great incredible strain, that's doing awesome with like 19 hours of daylight in the summer.
I'm surprised that the Nazis haven't moved up there yet. Just like go homestead a weird thing. Go do like, the original Nazis and go into a winter wonderland you're not prepared for and just freeze to death. It'd be nice.
There's definitely some weird white power shit up there, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just there's just so few Alaskans in general. I mean, like the state has I think 400,000 or 500,000 people, and something like 300,000 of them live in the greater Anchorage area. So it's not a particularly densely populated place. You will see some weird homesteading projects or like people's nightmare, give me land and I'll build the house of my dreams paradises on like the highway between Anchorage and Fairbanks. Like I'm telling you, I've seen houses that look like big UFOs where someone's like, I'm going to move to Alaska, I'm going to build a fucking dome, just like a huge ass geodesic dome. And yeah, man, you'll see that shit. You'll see weird stuff. My buddy and I went mountain biking one time on the trails north of Fairbanks, on the road that goes to this town called, I'm not joking, North Pole. And out on these trails that just basically were like what had been access roads for power lines, but they had overgrown to become like just these rough trails you could cycle on. We found this shack that hadn't been occupied. Well, at least the magazines and stuff that we saw in there were like from the mid 80s. And this would have been about 2010. So, probably 30 odd years, the house hadn't been occupied. And I took a look inside, but you never see that feeling when you're like, literally everything in here is moldy and alive. Like that was the feeling. I was just, because also peak summer in Fairbanks, the sun basically doesn't go down. Mosquitoes are just like the biggest, hairiest bugs you've ever seen in your fucking life. And we were like not in the city. We were in like proper out in the fucking wilderness. So yeah, if you want to go live out there, go do some sod busting.
The walls are moving, but not because of a poltergeist, but because the black mold has gained sentience.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, God, America's so fucking weird when you think about how big and empty most of it is. And, there's like the way that like American imperialism has cobbled together these places that are technically part of America. We annexed a Pacific kingdom and said, yeah, fuck your entire system of governance. You're a state now, by the way. These sugar plantations are going to set up shop. We've annexed basically every island that we landed troops on in World War II.
We can't give DC statehood. See, if Puerto Rico and DC would just simply have something we want,
or be white,
or be more white, yeah.
Well, you know why they made Puerto Ricans American citizens, right?
To make it easier for them to join the military.
To make it easier for them to get drafted in World War I.
Yes, that's right. I knew military was somewhere around it. But yeah, it was, and Puerto Ricans also joined the military at a very high rate too, because it's an island that doesn't have the infrastructure as the mainland, and also they get the fun thing of where like you're an American citizen, but you don't get representation, so you got to pay taxes, but you don't.
Well, yeah, and there were these tax breaks set up for like pharmaceutical companies to come and set up shop in Puerto Rico. And that was like pharmaceutical, like medical devices, drug manufacturing stuff. That was like the bulk of their working economy for a long time, aside from like tourism and agriculture and stuff. But now it's cheaper for manufacturers to make those things in, countries like India, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh, stuff like that. And so those factories basically are not hiring anymore. And unemployment is really bad in Puerto Rico. And then obviously they were destroyed by Hurricane Maria, and Trump did nothing to fix it. So... but I was going to say, if you want to talk about a place that's completely fucked by American imperialism that also joins the military at an incredibly high rate, American Samoa, the American imperial outpost where the closest major city is Auckland, New Zealand. It is so far in the southern hemisphere, but it's technically an American possession, American territory. So yeah, just so much to explore. So much weird stuff out there that our incredibly not an empire country has managed to cobble together in its brief, not even 250 years of existence.
Yeah. American Samoa is like, if you ask somebody, it's like, hey, go find it on a globe, and then you actually point it out. It's like when you find like $5 in your pocket that you didn't know you had. That's like every time finding American Samoa. It's like, oh shit, we have that? Cool. That's ours?
Yeah,
we should do something
weird
about
because
that.
When I was flying Space Available when I was on vacation one time. And if you've ever flown Space Available, so this is a fun thing, trivia for our non-military friends. So, obviously the military has flights going everywhere for cargo and shit, and regularly scheduled cargo things. And this wasn't always the case, but at some point they basically decided to make it policy that any service member, and also retiree, if you're a full retiree, like you do your 20 years, you can do this basically for free. But any service member can fly for free on Space Available flights if they have a stamped leave form that like they're technically on leave. And now like in the olden days when it was balls expensive to get between America and Europe or America and Asia, this made a lot of sense for troops because, if you wanted to go visit family or you were stationed in Japan or you were stationed in Korea or in Germany and you had 2 weeks of block leave, like you could catch a flight, from Ramstein Air Base to, I don't know, like I can't remember the name of the base in like Maryland or something, but there's a flight that runs pretty regularly between those two.
The base in Maryland? Meade?
No, there's an air base in Maryland. I'm not sure what it's called, but it's in the DC area or something like that. But there's definitely one that goes, I can't remember the name. And there's another one that I can't remember the name of that I was actually at, so hilariously. I was at, I was looking for a flight to Anchorage. And the thing about it is that you don't really know the schedule. You'll know the flight's like 3 days in advance and how many seats there'll be, and you get on the list. So it's not exactly the most efficient way to go about things. Hilariously, as of recently, the passenger terminals have done where they'll announce hey, this is tomorrow's flights or like the next 3 days flights. They'll announce it on their Facebook pages now. So that's one way of checking it. But basically, you don't know what flight you're going to get. And oftentimes the flights are like, all right, here's the scheduled flight. It's going to go to this base, then this one following, then this one following, then this one following. So one time I was trying to get a flight to Anchorage, but to Elmendorf Air Force Base. But all of the flights that were going were, what's it called? They were all going to Hawaii. I can't remember the name of the base in Hawaii, but yeah, airfield there. And one of them was going to Hawaii and then onward to, and I'm not joking, to Pago Pago, Western Samoa, and then onward to whatever the Royal Australian Air Force base where they do C-17s at, which I think is in Queensland. I'm pretty sure it's where the flights that we did our mission for the Talisman Sabre exercise were flying into. But yeah, so you could ostensibly, if you wanted to wait in the passenger terminal till the flight arrived, you could ostensibly get on a flight that's going to take you as a service member to Hawaii for free, then to Samoa for free, then to Australia for free. So yeah, kind of amazing stuff. That's your tax dollars at work. Your kids can't have erasers on their pencils, but troops can fly, but it's so incredibly inconvenient that in my experience, and Francis, you will probably get a kick out of this, the people who are most regularly taking advantage of space available flights are, can you guess?
Is it dependents?
Dependents and retirees. So if you ever want to be on a flight full of crying babies, like 8 babies to, one adult, and a bunch of really salty, grumpy dudes in their 40s and 50s who look divorced as shit fly space available. And also, just FYI, you will be flying in jump seats on the skin of the aircraft.
Yes.
It will be bucket seats, and you can pay for food if you want. You get like an Air Force MRE. I'm telling you, it is not comfortable. I remember waiting for a flight, sitting on a school bus on the airfield, hot as shit. They weren't letting us on or off the bus because we weren't sure if we could board the plane or not. Just on a plane with just fucking babies screaming nonstop, and I was just like, I'm in hell.
I would not do that. Like I had to take a C-17 from Afghanistan to Germany when I was leaving Afghanistan, and it was like a 10-hour flight in a bucket seat, flying sideways, and the bathroom is like a cup in the back that you piss in, and
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know what happens to it after that. I don't know if it goes in a tank or if it just sprays into the outside or something. But I wouldn't put my wife through that unless like we were refugees of some kind, like escaping. Otherwise, I'm just gonna fucking use my Southwest points because I don't. The military is not built for comfort.
No.
In any way, shape, or form. And we'll get to 30 minutes talking about Alaska, but we'll kind of get to our other thing. But the military's never designed anything like it kind of does now, because like it put air conditioners in MRAPs, not because like, oh, troops are hot. It's because troops were dying. And
Yes.
because an MRAP is just basically a tin. It's a Dutch oven. It is a metal Dutch oven that you cram like 4 to 10 soldiers inside of and then drive around with a diesel engine in 120-degree weather. People are just going to die inside of the fucking Humvees.
Well, yeah, and bear in mind that they're wearing, like long sleeves,
pounds and pounds of body armor. It's not
Yeah.
great. I would not ask anybody like, it's like, oh, we're going to go. Do you want to go to like me? I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it because I do kind of want to visit Hawaii one day, and I know how much plane tickets to Hawaii cost. So, but I doubt
you could probably get a flight out of like Wright-Patterson to somewhere on the West Coast, and then from there catch, because like that's the thing, is that it's a major hub in Hawaii. So like if you go to whatever that Air Force base, I think it's Travis Air Force Base in Northern California, or to what's it called, McCord Air Base in Seattle, you could probably get out there. I mean,
flying to Honolulu, there's only like three cities that do. It's like in California, it's San Jose,
Los Angeles and San Francisco. Are you talking about civilian flights or
civilian? Look, I haven't even looked at it for Space A. Space A is irritating too, because it's like you have to drop everything and run out the door to go do it.
100%. Yeah, it sucks.
Space A is great if you're when you're like 22 and you're like, I took block leave, where can I go? And I've got a passport, I've got some cash. Where is the next airplane going? And when can I be back? That's what Space A is really great for. It is not great for like the family vacation you've been planning for the last like 6 months, because you have no idea whenever, like you can't plan flights with that. It's just like, okay, we're gonna go to Disney World at some point at some time if an airplane is going there that has space for 3 of us. And my parents
had a funny story about this. They tried to do a Space A vacation for us because they had friends who were stationed at Naval Station Rota in Cadiz, Spain. And, my dad speaks Portuguese because he grew up partially in Brazil, because his dad was doing some fucking advising to, I'm pretty sure, the Brazilian dictatorship, because that's how the U.S. military worked and works. So my parents were like, well, we live in Germany, maybe we could go on vacation to Portugal. And it was obviously way cheaper to buy Space A tickets, where it was like $10 per person for your dependents and like free for service members, than it would be, to fly or take the train. So they had this brilliant idea for, taking me aged 7 and my brother aged 10, that we would get to Cadiz, and then we would they could go on vacation. We'd stay with their friends and they could go on vacation to Portugal. What wound up happening was, there was no direct flight to anywhere in Spain from Ramstein. So they were like, we'll go to Aviano. If you can get to Aviano Air Base in Italy, like there's a ton of intra-Europe flights there. So you'll probably be able to find one. So we did that. We lost 1 day of vacation going to Aviano. The next day we got on a flight. We went to, we were supposed to fly to Morón Air Base in Spain, in Barcelona, which is not near Cadiz at all. But unfortunately, the flight was a medical flight and there was an emergency on board during the flight. So they had to divert and we landed at, I believe it was RAF Mildenhall in Norfolk, England. So we had to spend the night there. And then we had to fly once again. They finally found a flight to Morone, which we got off there. And then we had to get on a sleeper train to Cadiz from Morone, from Barcelona. The problem was it was a sleeper train full of 18-year-old Spanish kids getting conscripted. So they were on their train to start their military training. You can imagine how sober and quiet that was. And my dad just like fucking doesn't speak Spanish at all. Is trying to argue with these kids to shut the fuck up in Portuguese, which is not the same language. I must emphasize, it is not the same language. And my dad looks like he could be Portuguese, so maybe they were just like, who is this wiry, angry, half-bald man yelling at me in Portuguese?
That reminds me in Generation Kill, when one of the sergeants goes up to Bautista and says, "Hey man, you got to get your shit under control, because like when things start popping off, you start yelling in Spanish and nobody can understand you." And he's like, "That is kind of fucked up, because in Brazil we all speak Portuguese, so it's weird that you're hearing Spanish when I start yelling."
Well, that's the thing that I was thinking too, is my parents we could have just driven to the airport in fucking Bonn or Frankfurt and flown to fucking Cadiz and just gotten it over with. But they were like, "No, this is $10 a ticket. This is fucking cheap. We're going to take advantage of the military system because it's the right way to do it." Like, we went to the airport the first day, and then my dad realized you had to be in uniform to fly. So they had to drive all the way back from Ramstein really fast, get his uniform, then drive all the way back to try to make the flight. Like,
that is such dad, I'm gonna save $1 anywhere energy. Like my father wasn't in the military for longer than a couple of years in the 60s, so I didn't have that. But certainly that's the same energy of we're gonna wake up and start driving at 4:00 in the morning. We're gonna take a cooler full of sandwiches and snacks and drinks so that we don't have to stop and eat anywhere, and we're gonna drive straight on through for 8 to 10 hours straight, because we're not gonna stay at a hotel anywhere. And it's like, Dad, we're not poor. We can relax a bit. And I love road trips. I hated road trips back in the day. I love them now, but specifically because my wife and I are just like, we'll not drive longer than about 6 hours in one day, because fuck all that noise.
Yeah, man, it's truly wild. And I realize that I have those same dad tendencies. Like when I drove from Alaska to Georgia, I was literally blushing when you were describing that, because I'm like, I was driving 14-hour days and I had a fucking cooler in my passenger seat that was full of sandwiches and Red Bull.
But it's just, but that was just you though. Like there's not a family. There's not a 5-year-old in tow with that. Like there's not a like if it was me, if you told me like, "Hey, I need you to drive to California as quickly as possible by yourself," I would do the exact same thing. I would load up with a bunch of snacks in the car, a bunch of Gatorade so I can just pee in the bottles while I'm driving, as you do, and get there. But like if it's hey, we're gonna wife and I have been planning all kinds of different things, because once we get our vaccination, we'll be able to kind of go out and do stuff. And it's like, we want to drive to, Memphis is a 4-hour drive, but Pigeon Forge is like, 7 or 8. So we're going to have to stop somewhere in between. We're going to do all the fucked up Midwest places. Go to Branson. We
used to drive to my grandparents' place in Hendersonville, North Carolina from Indiana. And my parents just drive straight on through. I mean, you can do that drive in a day, but it's like 14 hours.
Here's the fucked up thing that my dad did. He would get us up we would be visiting family in Kabul or Kansas City. Kabul, Missouri, not Kabul. We were not driving to Afghanistan. We're driving to Kabul, Missouri, which is south of Springfield. So that's about a 3-hour drive. Kansas City, if you're really booking along, is about 3.5, 4 hours. We would still get up ass early in the morning because Dad wanted to drive around the fucking Ozarks. Just drive around. Just go up and down. Let me tell you who gets real fucking car sick real quick going up and down Ozarkian hills. So
small children.
Oh, I threw up so many times all over the Ozarks, man. So many times. And Dad kept doing it. Now we got Dramamine. My kid gets in the car. We're going to go somewhere. It's like, take a Dramamine. Go to sleep.
Yeah, we
I'm all
didn't have
about
that
drugging
shit.
my child up.
Yeah, I remember getting sick because I was trying to read like Marvel comics in the backseat of the car on the drive back from like Stuttgart or something, and yeah, invariably I would get sick just because it's just I get car sick now. Like if I take an Uber home from work in New York and try to read my phone on New York's bumpy ass roads, I would absolutely get car sick. So
Yeah, I can't.
you can't just fucking get blasted off Dramamine, at 6 p.m. after work or something. It's not a good idea.
Well, yeah, and that's for long hauls, that's what you need the Dramamine for. But yeah, I can't. When my wife generally drives when it's the whole family going, and I can't look at my phone while she's. Otherwise, I'm going to start feeling sick.
So some interesting Army stuff that's going on recently. For one, a video crossed our timelines of people in 10th Mountain doing a shoot house live fire in which I was 100% expecting someone to get shot because
it's surprising nobody died. And it's surprising that there were
live rounds, and it looked like live rounds. Like
it was.
Why did you not stop it after the first flag? Like
right.
for non-military people, you just got to understand when we say flagging, what we mean is if in some capacity you swing your barrel, point your barrel of your rifle at someone friendly or like at someone who you're not intending it to point at. So doctrinally speaking, as I remember, you're supposed to lower your rifle when someone's passing by you because just on the off chance something happens, you don't want to shoot someone on your team or like an innocent civilian. So you are never supposed to point your rifle at anything you don't intend to shoot. Now, obviously, sometimes you have to keep it pointed down or like pointed way up, but you can't just let someone if they're like waiting to clear a door and you're like hanging out, like pulling security, you can't just be pointing your fucking rifle at them. So this is a training environment in which they're doing a live fire, like they're shooting live bullets in a training environment in a shoot house, like a close quarters battle training area. And I lost count how many people got flagged, but it was dozens of times.
It was everything. I mean, and the flagging is bad enough. Like the first time I watched it, I was just like, I'm surprised somebody didn't die. But like on the third time I watched it, then I noticed how they were doing literally everything else wrong too. Like Nate, I understand I'm a pogue. I understand I've got, there's only a certain amount of combat experience that I can really speak to, but you never do two people through a door at the same time. There's a reason why it's called the funnel of death. Because now you just have two dead soldiers instead of one. There's no corner clearing. There's people crossing in front of other people. It's all like everything I'm watching. Just like and it's been a while. It's been a decade, Nate, since I've been in since I've had to do any kind of door kicking training. So I don't know. Maybe they changed it. They changed basic training in the last 20 years. But according to every other veteran who watched it, that would be an error. They did not change. They did not change how to door kick. That's still the same way, and they did everything wrong.
As I understand it too, and I mean, look, I'll put some bona fides here. I was an infantry officer, and I think I went through a live fire in a shoot house maybe 4 times in 7 years in the Army. So I am by no means like the door kicking master. And I mean, and nothing annoyed me more than the kind of soldier NCO officer who just was always smarter and better than everyone else at CQB and could just talk shit endlessly about all the things people were doing wrong. Because the point is, like, everyone sucks when they're training. You have to train, you have to practice, you have to get better and better at it by doing your job, clearing shit. But the point of why people were freaking out so much about this was a live fire. So like, this was the point at which you were not supposed to be fucking things up. Like if people are messing this up on their first try, all right, stop the training, explain what they're doing wrong, keep training until you can do it right. But like when you do a live fire, you're supposed to have done a dry fire where no one fucked up like this, even when there were no bullets in your weapons, in your magazines. You know what I mean? So if you're having this many problems at the live fire point, like something is going very, very seriously wrong. And so like, I do not want to appoint myself the sort of like tribal tats having 36-ounce monster drinking dude who's like a permanent E6 or like, a terminal first lieutenant, just like going on about like huge dip in their mouth, complaining about people who suck at CQB. Because I mean, like I was in the Army when, there was a certain cadre of call it junior NCOs and officers were convinced that the way that you needed to win the war was just doing CQB and doing CrossFit. And like, it's annoying as shit. I'm not one of those people. But it's just one of those situations where like, those are real bullets in the guns. You know that, right? Like those people they're shooting real rounds.
I've done shoot house video. I've done shoot houses where either you have like paintballs, they have M4s and M16s that are created to shoot
simunitions. Yeah, you swap out the I think it's the upper receiver in the barrel, and then you shoot simunitions, which have powder. Like they are actual cartridges. They have blasting caps, and they have what's it called, gunpowder in them to shoot paintball rounds, but like they aren't bullets.
Right, and it's not paint. It's like this kind of oily, but it's the same. It's the same thing. You're getting hit with.
I mean, it fucking hurts to get hit with them, but they won't
sucks.
kill you unless you literally get shot in the eye. But you wear eye pro and stuff.
Yeah, you wear we had the big paintball masks and everything. So I've done that, and I've done blank firing, BFA, going through with blanks and doing shoot houses. I've never done a live fire, and to be fair, that's probably for the best. But if I was watching this and I saw blank firing adapters on the front, I'm like, okay, this is the first time that these people did it, and they're going to go back over the video, and the RSOs are going to smack them upside the head and say, don't do this, don't do that, just like they did with us. They said, here's what you did wrong. Go through it again and don't do those things.
But you can see people in the catwalks watching. Nothing's happening.
Like
they're not doing anything.
And right, it's like where now the commander of the 10th Mountain is involved. Is like, oh, that's not that's not to our standards. That's not this. That's not that. I'm like, there's no way this happened without at least a major or lieutenant colonel knowing that this was going on.
There was guaranteed a master sergeant with an enormous cup of coffee fucking watching this shit the whole time.
Right. And at no point in time did anybody stop. Like, as soon as the first, a flag, like if you're swinging the rifle around or something, that's bad. It's not great. But that'll happen sometimes. The guy pointing a gun at his comrade for 3 to 10 seconds while they try to figure out what the fuck they're doing next, that's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at that point, you're not really pulling security. You're just threatening to kill your fucking comrades. When I was in Korea, obviously it's very different with tanks, but at one point, somebody fucked up on the range and traversed their tank turret, so the barrel was pointing at the range control tower, and they had live rounds in the tank. And range control shut the whole range down for 24 hours. They did a mandatory stand down for everyone and stuff like that. So
just walking through and slapping people constantly.
Oh, yeah. Safety violations obviously are a huge deal. And so when I saw this, I was just like, oh, stop flagging. What the fuck are you doing? I'm not...
It's look, Nate, it's the same thing. Like I said, I'm not a combat soldier. I never claimed to be. But there's basics that we all learn. It's like if somebody popped up and if we went and watched a grenade range, and we saw somebody doing some sort of underhand toss, or we saw somebody doing the sidearm baseball throw, you can say look, I'm not a grenade expert, but I know that's fucking wrong. I know what you're doing is incorrect. You grip it, you overhand throw it, you get down. Why you're trying to pitch it like you're in the major leagues, I don't fucking understand.
Yeah, man. I mean, ultimately, what it comes down to is just I was really taken aback that this video made it out, honestly, because I feel like
it's embarrassing.
Had I seen this video, if I was the squad leader or the platoon leader, platoon sergeant, whomever, if I saw that, I'd be like, delete that shit now. Or first, let's have everyone together to watch it so we can talk about what you never do in a fucking live fire, and then delete this fucking video. But I'm wondering how it got out. Who knows? There's a whole story there, but I feel as though, in a way, it's actually kind of, how do you phrase this? It's useful to point this out that, this is an infantry company in the 10th Mountain Division, which is an infantry unit. And folks are fucking this up. Just because people use guns for a living as part of their training and whatnot does not mean they know anything about the absolute most fundamental aspects of gun safety.
I mean, look, we had last year, maybe a year and a half ago, we had a St. Louis cop shoot another cop accidentally. And by accidentally, I mean pointed the gun at their chest and pulled the trigger because they didn't think it was loaded.
Jesus.
This was and the cops were on duty. They just swung by a party and it's like, hey, let's go hang out and get a drink while we're patrolling around. And then one shot his girlfriend. He's like, oh, you got body armor on. This will be fine. Burnt. So look, people, just because you're a person that has training in guns doesn't mean that I trust you with guns. If you're just gonna use it as some sort of political prop or just I have this and it makes me more of a man or more protected. I don't want to be near you, man. Just put the. I love my shotgun, man, but I don't. It's not an extension of who I am. And everybody needs to calm the fuck down. So, and I'm gonna try to put up a video later this week where I kind of break it down a little bit more so you can really understand how fucked up that video is. Because I know I've shared it. I know a lot of people have talked about it, but like really only military people understand why this is fucked up. So I definitely want to go through and so, since we try to be as open and understanding for our civilian listeners, I want you to understand why this is such a amazingly bad video. So we'll have that up for you later this week.
Anyway, we also have yet another Zoo Crew as our bonus. Francis, Shocks, and Joe Kasabian talked about mostly video games that portray the military and war violence. And it was a good conversation, so I'm going to rule a little bit of that. And if that's interesting to you, you can get it on Patreon at a very, very cheap rate of $1 per month. The Dad Chats and Zoo Crew episodes are for our $1 tier. So just bear that in mind if you want this bonus.
No, they actually had a cash offer at 10% more than asking within like the first 4 hours of the open house.
That happened to me, and when I was looking at a house in Tacoma, when I was like, because the first thing I always do is like look up the neighborhood, like, because obviously the realtor is going to be like, yeah, the schools suck and someone died in the front lawn the last week. So I looked up and there was a drive-by shooting like 4 houses down, and we were outbid by $100,000. Like,
Yeah.
and it was one of those situations because like I wanted to live in the greater Tacoma area, and I told the realtor like, this is the roof of what we're able to spend. And that dude looked at me and was like, come on, really? You want me to find something in Tacoma for you for that price? It's going to be a fucking tent. And you're still going to get outbid.
You fucking surf.
Yeah. You fucking plebe. You go south into Thurston County where you belong. That's exactly what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. Going back to like the original question. I mean, like I played like the original, was it Call of Duty 2? And I've played like a couple of the Modern Warfares, and I think back in the day I played one of the fucking Tom Clancy like Ghost Recon games or like some bullshit. So like I don't know, I've played like a smattering of them, but I don't know, none of them really like, it was always like me coming up behind just as like a dumb shooter, like, you know, years later, and never anything that I like really did at the time when it was actually fucking popular. Like it was just like wasn't a thing that I ever really got involved in.
Well, what's some military media that you do like? Like you've already made us watch Perfect Storm, so we could gush over the Coast
I can
Guard.
think of a book that's really good.
Oh yeah, Joe, what's that?
The Things They Carried.
Yeah, that's why I actually really. So actually, one of my probably my all-time favorite book is probably Catch-22. And at some point, I am gonna like make either you or Francis watch like the fucking series on Hulu.
Oh shit! Yeah,
I still haven't seen it.
I watched the first episode and I liked it, and I just haven't gotten. Maybe I'll do that tomorrow while things are fucking cold as shit and slow.
I have mixed feelings about the like adaptation, both in the miniseries and also like in the Robert Altman movie. But I mean that was always like my favorite book. I've read like the Things They Carried. Watched all the fucking standard war movies. I've definitely like my because like my life is currently trash and my brain has been fucking garbage. I've been like rewatching like the first 5 seasons of MASH recently because like it just like has some like dumb guy energy that it really seems to like relate to me at a very personal level.
God, when I hear the opening bars of Suicide is Painless, I'm transported to being like fucking 11 years old.
Yeah.
And cartoons are over on Saturday morning and fucking here comes MASH.
Yeah. And it's like you can only keep watching TV if you don't keep flipping channels.
Right.
So like I definitely trained myself to like MASH at a young age because like
keep watching TV.
So I could keep watching TV because if there was like a fucking like marathon on FX on like a Saturday afternoon, I'd be like, oh no, I'm just watching this. So like, like I'm not flipping channels.
I fucking love comedy about the Korean War.
Yeah, really, but I love an allegory about the Vietnam War through the Korean War, 2 events that I've definitely lived through as like as a fucking 12-year-old in like, 1999. Like, yeah,
this is very poignant to me.
Yeah, this checks out. I'm feeling a lot of ennui about this particular TV show and wish to learn more.
You know that's pronounced ennui, right?
I mean, I know. I just prefer ennui.
Okay. I mean,
I like it better my way.
It does. That is what it looks like, and that's what it is. It took me a while to realize subtle. It was pronounced subtle and not subtle.
I just reject your reality and substitute my own. I've stated this on previous. I mean, that's also the core of most of any legal briefing I've ever done.
I have a manager who
general,
says,
right?
I have a manager who says things are a mute point constantly. Like he specifically says mute, and I'm just like, I can't. I don't want to be the one that tells him anything. I like him, so I don't want to like fucking correct a thing that I've heard him do for the last 3 years.
Or I mean, like every episode of a certain history podcast where the host just pronounces every single word wrong.
Look,
Fuck you.
us Midwesterners got dumb mouths, all right? We don't know how to get it. Like, if you ever brought a French-speaking person to St. Louis, to be like, yes, we're named after a French king, and then here's all of their streets that still maintain French words, and then listen to us pronounce them and just fucking mangle the language of France and Quebec. I don't know.
That's every city in Michigan.
But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of like most of my. I mean, also because there's not a lot of media that's really about. I would say like kind of the nautical perspective on war. Like, I mean, there's like I do have like a really.
We watched Battleship. What do you want?
Das Boot's the shit.
Yeah, I mean, was it the Enemy Below? There's a really good old Henry Fonda movie called Mr. Roberts that is actually like really good at it's like Henry Fonda on this cargo ship in the middle of the Pacific Theater, like far away from any combat, and like kind of deals with him like as like a meditation on wanting to go to war but kind of being stuck doing like a quote unquote essential job away from it. And I think I was actually kind of nice in the way that in comparison to like a lot of the post World War II movies that sprang up during that era, it actually deals with just kind of like the reality of doing a boring fucking job in the middle of fucking nowhere during a time of war.
It's very reminiscent of Enlisted.
Yeah, I never watched that.
That was like
Only
one of
good military show.
It was so good, and it's so sad that it had to go away.
It made it one season, right?
Yeah, they only aired. There's 13 episodes. They only aired 11, but like when you
what happened to the other two?
Yeah, you could. They just didn't air them.
PTSD takes over and beats his wife.
No, it was they're just rear detachment soldiers doing rear detachment shit, and having to. I loved it because it's just like, oh, these are the soldiers that I like, the ones that are like fucking not dumb, but just like don't fit in, but also want to be there.
Did you ever watch Over There?
God, yes. Ugh.
The best, worst fucking show ever. Even the theme song.
What was that one?
Over there.
It came out like a year after the Iraq War started.
Oh God, it was so bad.
Very fucking early on. And I'm going to make both of you watch it as a bonus episode.
No. Absolutely not. Do not
Fuck
make
you. You don't have a choice.
Do not. Oh God, it was 2005. It was. The only thing.
Like 2 years after the fucking war started.
The only thing I remember about this fucking show is that at one point one of the female characters, one of the female soldiers goes on leave and then like for some reason goes to Las Vegas and hooks up with a prostitute and then gets all of her shit stolen. And then, like, is just like, well, I'm AWOL and I have nothing else to... She was, like, trying to go AWOL from Iraq and then was just like, oh, I got all my shit stolen, so I guess I just should face the music and go back to Iraq because I can't do anything else. And that's all that I remember about it.
Literally, all of these actors' careers died with this fucking show.
Good.
Some of them on their was it the IMDb page don't even have a profile picture, which is incredible.
What network was it on?
It was on FX.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah,
oh my God. And they're wearing was it fucking third ID patch and they're wearing it incorrectly, which is hilarious.
I will say the DCU body or the DCU uniforms and the green body armor. That's how I rolled. That's how I rolled.
I mean, I just appreciate that like you could manage to fuck up like a weirdly like, jingoistic like military drama in an era on FX when I think their principal hit was the fucking Shield.
right.
Like you just have like an entire like your flagship series as a cop just like mercilessly beating the shit out of everyone in his path, and you still couldn't make a military show work.
Listen to this. Listen to this fucking description of an episode over there. The fire team is ordered to evict the residents of an orphanage that has been designated as being needed for public use. Upon arriving at the site, the unit destroys a box they believe to contain a bomb, only to find out it actually housed a young boy's chess set.
So that actually happened at my middle school.
What?
Yeah, we all watch Good Will Hunting. We know. Everybody, thank you so much. You can follow me at Army Strang, follow Nate at In These Deserts, follow the podcast at Hell of a Way. We've got a lot of stuff on our website, hellofawaytodie.com. Be sure to check that out too. But certainly the Patreon is where you're going to get. If you love listening to us, boy, you're going to love the Patreon because it's just a whole lot more of that. So a lot of interviews, a lot of dad chats, a lot of great stuff there. So check that out, patreon.com/hellofawaytodie. As for those of you who are Patreons and who are members, thank you so much for all the support you give us. And Nate, we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, take care.
Zoom, zoom.